Good morning to everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. It's your favorite back. Football is back. That's most important. The Texas Longhorns. We're going to be this week. We're actually going to have a chance to get to practice this week. We're going to talk to coordinators and coaches on this Tuesday. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack. And the main subject of today is going to be RB1. Is there an RB1 in the house? So go ahead and hit like to this video, please. Subscribe to the channel. We've got over 50,000 subscribers. So we are growing. We are blowing up. Please be a part of the movement. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we go live or have the videos come on at any point. But let's get into this thing. Let's get into the meat of this thing. RB1. Texas, the players reported for training camp on Monday. They have some team activities, meetings, and all those things on Tuesday, and they should be hitting the field on Wednesday. We will be out there. And as we start thinking about certain things, we feel really good about certain aspects of the team, right? You feel really good about the defense. Most of you guys feel really good about the quarterback situation. But we're going into training camp knowing that there are going to be a couple of little holes, a couple of little question marks that you're going to have, right? You got some question marks about the offensive line and what's that's going to look like and the cohesiveness and the gel, maybe some things about the receivers. But really the question for me that is one of the, and I don't want to say really, but one of the big questions for me is RB1. Who emerges as RB1 coming out of training camp? Question is also, is there RB1 in the house? Now, let's get into it. Let's break this down into a couple of different layers. First off, this will be interesting for the Texas Longhorns because Texas will be breaking in a new running backs coach, breaking in, right? But, you have Tashard Choice leave. He goes to the Detroit Lions. I mean, it's one of those things I had kind of documented that, he had a previous NFL offer, but from the Cowboys, he decided to stay after Texas goes ahead and ups his offer. And then the Detroit Lions come back almost like a week later, and they pay his buyout, $850,000 to get to Shard Choice. So then Steve Sarkeesian is kind of left with the situation of, okay, I got to replace this guy, and he replaces him with Chad Scott. Chad Scott is, a veteran running backs coach. Doesn't come in with all the hype, it like maybe a Tashard Choice. And, of course, we're familiar with Tashard Choice for what he was able to do in the NFL. But he spent those, several, I think it was like 7 seasons in West Virginia, coaching running backs, had some success level there. And so now he comes here to Texas and he inherits a room that's a good room, but, there's always room for improvement, right? And so we start the whole conversation with, and I'll start with this. Steve Sarkeesian prides himself in having 1,000-yard backs. Like that is one thing that Steve Sarkeesian will walk around with the big stick talking about, I've got 1,000-yard backs. Now, let me show you Steve Sarkeesian's history of 1,000-yard backs so you can see how far back this thing really goes. Let me see if I can put this on the screen as I do my self-editing here. All right, let me make that a little bit bigger. All right. So, and listen. I wish it was more professionally done. Okay, but hey, I'll be honest with you. I'm recording this thing at 6:30 in the morning. My kid's at a football practice right now, and I had to figure out a way to make this thing on my own. So shout out to ChatGPT for helping me out at 6 something in the morning. But let's get into it. You can see going back to 2009, and then we can work our way forward. So go from bottom to top, that he's had tons of success having 1,000-yard backs. It's always going to be something that Sark hangs his hat on. He's running the ball is always going to be a thing he hangs his hat on. So you go back to Chris Polk when he was there in 2009, and Chris Polk had two years when he goes over 1,000 yards. The Bishop Sankey years ends up being kind of sick. I mean, 1,800 yards is crazy in 2013. And of course, 2010, he had 1,439. He gets to USC and he gets, 1,489 yards. By the way, there's something missing for the Justin Davis yardage right there. Let me get that for you because, well, this is why you got to check your stuff before you put it on Chat GPT. But Justin, he ends up in that season with okay, so Justin Davis has 595 yards. Javorius Allen has 1,489 yards. Justin Davis actually ends up in 2015. He ends up with 902 yards. I apologize. Ronald Jones ends up with 987 yards and 8 touchdowns. So that there's just a little bit of on that one. So Justin Davis, just make sure you note 902 yards. So he doesn't have 1,000-yard rusher that season, but it's damn near close enough, right? It's damn near close enough where you can say, he's got a guy that's 1,300 yards away. And as all of you guys who follow football and played fantasy football, we know what Ronald Jones ended up doing in the NFL. And then let me just take this thing down. Let me take this thing down because I don't like it. It's pissing me off. Then we go to Najee Harris. He gets to Alabama, and he's got a Najee Harris gets 1,244 yards one season, and then follows it up with 1,466 yards. You guys are well aware of Bijan Robinson for those 2 years. You go into Jonathan Brooks, who comes in basically off the bench, and he ends up with 1,139 yards. And then, of course, we have Quintrevion Wisner last season, who rushes for over 1,000 yards, right? And so the streak ends up being intact. Streak ends up being way better than that horrible graphic that I tried to show. So I apologize for that. Don't kill me in the comments. Don't roast me in the comments. I literally was like, man, should I do a show? Do I not do a show? And I was like, well, let me just try to do my best. So please don't roast me. But I know you're going to roast me anyway. It's all good. It's all love. And so now you go into it and say, all right, well, you got Quintrevion Wisner, and he's a returning 1,000-yard back. Hell, that's the thing that Texas has been touting in this offseason. They've got their stat that says that he is the only returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC. And let's go ahead and break down him from last season. So let me go ahead. This one will be easier. I did this one I'm about to show. Hey man, you can be. Sometimes it's okay to be self-deprecating. It's all good. Now I want you to look at the stats from last year. And if you look at the stats from last season, you can see Quintrevion finishes 6th in the SEC in rushing. He gets to 1,000 yards. That's an average of about 70 yards per game. So you can see there in this whole graphic is based off of the average yards per game. So obviously you have Dylan Sampson, who went bananas last year with about 114 yards per game. You can see Jarquez Hunter from Auburn as well. So you're able to see what guys are able to do in the SEC. Not bad. Now, here's the only thing that I would say Mr. Wisner can improve on. And let's go to the average per game. Now, in the average per game, he's down here 24. Now, this is a little skewed, all right? So you got to dig a little bit deeper into numbers because his average is at 4.71. And you probably objectively want to get that one a little bit higher, right? Because Jarrett Gibson's here at a 21, ranked at 21, and he's at that 4.83. Now, I would say take these stats with a little bit of grain of salt because you can look here, all right? So this guy here, he's only had 52 carries, right? You can see another guy's got 74, 79. So, all stats, 56 carries. So all stats aren't created equal, okay? But if you go, let's say, to the Jarquez Hunter, who rushed for over 1,000 yards, you can see his average is at 6.42. Okay. If we go back to Sampson, you can see his average is about 5.72. 8, right? So as you look at people who have higher, yards per games, more carries, this guy at 818 yards, Nate Noel, he's at the 5.02, right? So you kind of get into that thought process of, okay, it's not, listen, 1,000 yards is 1,000 yards, right? Wisner is a really good running back. Comes from a really good family. I was able to meet his mom and dad last season. Really, really good people. And I've heard really great things about them. So what I'm saying as relates to Wisner is not a knock on him or anything like that. I want to make sure, because I got to make sure sometimes, sometimes y'all relay information back to people and it becomes a game of telephone. It's like, that's not really what I said. Okay. But I would know them from what little I know about them, from what and little I know about Wisner as a competitor. No, everybody's trying to get better. Everybody wants to do better. There's no way that anybody's saying, yes, I just want to do exactly what I did last season. So, now the question for him is, can he take the next step into becoming that person who's at that 5.5 yards per carry kind of clip and, and can average a little bit more than 70 yards per game? And then the question becomes the guys who are behind him. What does a CJ Baxter look like? CJ Baxter is supposed to be starting in training camp. I asked some people about him recently, and they told me, look, he's not at 100%, but he's good enough to go. And the plan is to be, delicate with him, understanding that it's a long season, understanding that he's had 2 injuries in back-to-back years. So no one wants to really jeopardize that, especially, now and we're in July, but August is coming around the corner. And so they want to be kind of careful with him. But the question becomes, what do you get out of a CJ Baxter? What does he have left in the tank? Now, is he a person that comes back and lives up to that 5-star billing, that 5-star ranking, the guy who was a starter a couple of years ago? Does he become that guy? Is he kind of a rotational guy for right now until you feel like he's 100%? Like, what do you get out of CJ Baxter this season? That becomes a question. Another question becomes to Jared Gibson as well. Jared Gibson, again, he was a freshman. I and that's no disrespect. I always feel like whatever you get out of a freshman is kind of found money. If you could get something out of him from the running back position, great. And look, he was able to go in there and he was able to contribute, but he had some ball security issues. And that was kind of a thing. And it's interesting too, when you start thinking about that, the whole running back room, because you go now. Let me give you the depth chart, and this is Alex Dunlap's depth chart, right? And I've kind of referred to this a little bit. It just makes it easier to see. Then once you get past Gibson, then there's Christian Clark. He's coming off an injury from last season. Heard great things about him in the spring, but what does he look like? And then you have Simon and Stewart, and look, I've heard good things about those guys as well, but they're younger guys. So are they just contributing on special teams right now? What the running back rotation looks like, and how all those guys are mixed in is going to be really interesting to see, how that thing kind of plays out. Who ends up being the guys that Chad Scott goes for, and who ends up being the guys that Chad Scott, leans on. Now, and here's the other thing about the running back room, and I think it's also important to note, and I'm going to get this one here for you as well. And look, I'm going to find this for the rushing offense. All right. So let me put this on the screen for you, and I want to share this for you. Okay. And again, this is where I say the running back room will be able to see. All right, here we go. With the running back room here, this is what it looked like last season from a rushing offense perspective. Texas was ranked 10th in the SEC from a rushing offense perspective. Now, they were ranked 4th in the Big 12 in 2022. They were ranked 6th in the Big 12 in 2023. So 2022, the Longhorn rushing offense was averaging 5.2 yards per carry. In 2023, it went down a little bit to 5.01 yards per carry. Last season, as you can see, it went down to 4.33 yards per carry. This one actually says, 4.33 yards per carry. So there's actually been a little bit of a statistical decline in that running back room. Okay, so we're going to see what happens. Again, I don't want none of you running backs coming at me. I don't want you when you see me saying, "Man, Unc was talking about us." No, Unc was just saying, like, it's a question. It's a question that needs to be answered, and it becomes the thing that Chad Scott ultimately needs to turn around. There's talent in that room. We know there's talent in the room, but there's another level to be achieved. And it's just up to those Longhorns to achieve it. And we're going to see what happens because, listen, I'm excited about them. I'm excited about this offense. And look, if Sark can have that as a major weapon, going back to the Najee Harris days, well, Texas is cooking with grease. And this season, I mean, if you could take it up just another level within that room, this whole season could be amazing. All right, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I did my best. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to be back tomorrow at some point, probably going to be live at some point this week, and I'll give you some updates from all the coaches that we talked to. We got practice things going on. Again, it's football season. It's time to be happy. Let's do it. All right, y'all.